Following the end of Ultra 7 in 1968, Tsuburaya Productions took a break from the Ultra series. They didn't stop making special effects shows, and spin-offs like Ultra Fight kept the name relevant, but the mainline series was more or less over. In 1970, company founder Eiji Tsuburaya passed away, leaving behind not just a legacy of special effects films and a family to look after his company, but also a new idea that showrunners could expand upon: a return to Ultraman, which eventually manifested as, well, Return of Ultraman. Welcome back to Ultra Retrospective, my journey to rewatch every Ultraman show I've already seen to see if I think they hold up. To address the elephant right away, this is a remake of the very first Ultra Retrospective I made almost 4 years ago. I made that video using a script I wrote for fun in college. At the time it had been more than a year since I'd even seen the show I was talking about, so when I revisited Ultraman Max in the next video, by actually watching it and taking notes as I did, the structure immediately changed. I'll keep the original up just so you have something to compare this to, but yeah, that would make this a return to Return of Ultraman. I especially owe it to the show after the passing of its lead actor, Jiro Dan, in 2023. So, my experience with it? When I first watched it, it was with a Malaysian DVD release my friend lent me that I've since learned was not a bootleg. The English translation was just that bad. The Mill Creek Blu-ray we have now has issues, mainly in regards to sloppy audio remastering complaints that I can level against all of Tsuburaya's other HD releases. But it looks much better, and you can actually read what the characters are saying. This was how I watched it for this video. But that's enough about me and ways to watch this one. What happens in Return of Ultraman? In a first episode directed by Ishiro, I directed the original Godzilla Honda, a second wave of monsters has begun. Mechanic and aspiring race car driver Hideki Go saves a youngling and his dog at the cost of his life, which naturally makes him a worthy candidate to become Ultraman, who was passing by and happened to see his act of bravery. I like how you can see the suit actor bracing himself at the end there. Within the same 25-minute runtime, he also joins the newly formed attack team. And from there it's smooth sailing. Maybe not so smooth for Go, since he has some personal failings to work out first, yet the show swiftly begins to follow the famous Ultraman formula. There's a new monster or alien every week causing some kind of problem. Before that gets revealed, there's a little bit of setup establishing stakes, mood, and characterization. The attack team intervenes, they fail, Ultraman shows up, boom, everyone laughs, and then there's a freeze frame. Hope they didn't let that kid hit the ground. Aside from some big changes made to the status quo later on, Return isn't too much of a departure from what was established before it. In some ways, it's marrying the styles and tones of Man 66 and 7, in addition to somewhat awkwardly retconning them to be part of the same timeline. More on that later. While this sort of middle ground between serious and goofy can make it come off as plain, the more pessimistic fan could even say it's dull, I'm still really entertained by what's here. So when there is a highlight, I think the show manages to rival the first two and produce some of the most iconic stories of the Showa era. First, let's talk about its leading man. This is something Bamco would never allow today, but protagonist Hideki Go is the first Ultraman to not require a transformation device. He does a Toei hero-like pose, and that's all he needs. That and an actual reason to become Ultraman, because early on, Go needs to get his ego checked. Go Hideki, watashi wa Ultraman da. Ultraman? At first it's vague if this even is the original Ultraman, a holdover from the show's initial concept where he definitively was. He starts out with all the same techniques, and the characters, as well as the narrator, simply refer to him as Ultraman. This is retconned a good 3/4 of the way through, and future shows that this Ultra would appear in would refer to him as Shin Man, or Return Man. Nowadays, for clarification and marketing reasons, he is named Ultraman Jack. It fits, they already had Ace by the time the change was made. A couple more guys and they could have had a full deck of playing cards. After that first episode, the line between Go and Ultraman becomes blurred. Well, not yet. See, Go breaks new ground for the Ultra series by being the first protagonist with a character arc the show explicitly points out. He has his own wants. He wants to be a race car driver. He wants to show how strong he is. He wants to be a good Ultraman. Early on, it's clear that fusing with a superpowered alien makes him really good at everything. Everything except being a good hero, being a good Ultraman. So he needs to stay humbled. I like Hideki Go. It's satisfying to see him grow throughout the series. But I will say that early on, the cycle of him doing something stupid or going against orders and getting fired isn't the most fun thing to watch. If anything, I'd imagine this is a turnoff for new viewers. Like, yeah, this is a formulaic show. We expect there to be a structure, if not repeated elements every time. But early on, Go gets fired or suspended so many times it's like, oh my god, we get it. It's so boring to see him walk into a rake every week. He does get better, stick with the show, don't drop it quite yet, but his behavior early on is a hurdle. Flanking Go is basically his newfound family, the Cicadas. There's Jiro, the precocious kid who's always getting into trouble, Aki, the plain love interest, and Ken, the wise middle-aged man who always has advice for Go when he needs it. Aside from Ken, Jiro is the Cicada who sees the most screen time. In my first pass at this show, I recall saying I didn't mind him that much. Kids in Toku media run the gambit of just being annoying. He's more astute and tends to notice something is wrong before even the adults do. He also gives Go someone to be responsible for. That technically makes him more a tool for the plot than a character, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too nice. It's better than what Ultraman Ace did with a similar kid in the latter half of its run, so I gotta bring up where these precocious kid archetypes work where I can. I like this scene where Go's all like, and then Ken sighs like, oh boy, Go's being weird again, whatever. I like these characters as a means of providing an easy way of getting storylines outside of Matt. Go has something close to a family he can go back to when things are dire for him, and it's good levity. It helps that Ken's actor, Shin Kishida, was amazing and he lends the mentor role the credibility it needs. He carries the entire Cicada family element of this show for me. Yeah, we'll talk about what happens to that later. The Monster Attack Team breaks new ground for the Ultra series by being the first attack team with negative charisma. Hi, Kenji Sahara. The Ultra Guard from the previous show started the trend of more serious and less personable co-workers, but Matt's cast especially has the presence of boring wallpaper. Not that the show doesn't try to give them depth. With the exception of the odd episode or two focusing on a member during their off hours, there is very little distinguishing them. Even their haircuts could have used more variety. Go is being way too humble here. Even when the captain is swapped out for a new one in episode 22, apparently a pretty big ratings boost for the time considering the new one, Jun Nagami, was an established and respected actor, it still doesn't do much to endear this crew to me. I remember Ueno a little because he's one of the few people who stands up for Go during the many times he gets grilled. He's not a fully formed character by any stretch, but it's at least a name I remember without having to check my notes. I also remember him for this. While Matt itself may be unremarkable, their theme song isn't. It's so catchy. This a cappella style of music, which would go on to be known as Wandabadabada, became a recurring motif for attack teams in the Ultra series from here on out, seeing many variations and tributes decades later. When Ultraman is parodied, the attack team is usually accompanied by a song that sounds like this. Back to Return Man. Matt's ineffectiveness at times, often leading to a monster causing more trouble than it would have if they were just more competent, ties into an overall theme of failure and redemption. Go suffers so much, but he's always picking himself back up, with and without help. And once he's gotten over the problem of the week, he's there to help others in similar predicaments. And no better is this theme of getting stronger as a person seen best than at the very end of the show. I didn't write a good segue for this. What I've always liked about Return Man is how quintessentially 70s it is. Everyone's got shaggy, side-swept haircuts. Again, kinda leads to a problem keeping track of all the Matt characters. I'm like this with the Beatles too. Go wears sweaters on his days off. The culture on display here is amusing and helps this feel like a snapshot of someone's life from the time. Except with giant superheroes and monsters. If I could describe Return of Ultraman in one word, it would be ordinary. Which isn't a slight, that's just how it presents itself. It's not averse to moments of stylization, it's just everything from the fashion to how by the books the attack team is, to the dedication to the new formula, to even acknowledging the record-setting and pervasive pollution in cities of the time. It's doing its best to make its world feel more ordinary, believable to a contemporary audience. Unlike the previous two shows, which took place in the future, this is set in the current year, so it made sense to directly point at these things to definitively cement it in its time. It's still a little f***ed up how they make toys of these guys when they destroy cities every week. The more down-to-earth approach is what allows those extraordinary moments where the monster does something funny, or when an episode has something interesting to say. Yeah, it allows those moments to stand out. Imagine living in this universe. In this new age of monsters, they could be found while taking family photos, their eggs on the way to school, their skeletons uncovered during a field trip. Japan's rampant pollution problem attracts this one. You could be driving home from your 9 to forever, and an invisible one that looks like a scrotum pops up out of nowhere. Evil aliens could be pretending to be otherwise innocuous younglings. You can't go 5 steps without stumbling into something that looks like this. And Ultraman's gotta blow it up before you can comfortably return to your life. This has always been an element of the Ultra series, the contrast of the ordinary and extraordinary, yet it's especially noticeable here because of how much it broadcasts, whether intentionally or not, how much it was made in the early 70s. There was never a movie named Rodan vs. Godzilla, ya ding-dong! Unless you mean the parts in Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster, where Godzilla and Rodan politely debated each other. Return of Ultraman naturally feels like a middle ground between the tones and styles of Ultraman 66 and Ultra 7. And what I mean by that is, Ultra 7 was defined by its dry militarism and high-concept sci-fi. The aliens were often trying to be threatening, and the show didn't try to undercut its own tension. The original Ultraman was, on a case-by-case basis, more lighthearted. The human characters were charismatic and personable, and the monsters often the subject of slapstick. Return compromises by having the more dry militarism of 7 with its attack team, having episodes with more serious consequences, while keeping the tone light enough to let the monsters be silly. It being a return to the original structure with all these monsters comes with some inconvenient baggage though, as several episodes just repeat entire storylines and resolutions. The one with Stegon, where the younglings beg Ultraman not to kill it, ends the same way as the Gavidon episode, where he turns the monster into something in the sky. I could go on, this sort of repetition is unavoidable with any franchise that's just crossed over into having 100 episodes, but it's just another way Return Man feels familiar. One thing it starts doing differently are the eye catches. Yeah, this is the first show with those. So the story structure of the average episode now relies on mid-episode stingers to get the viewer to stick through the commercial break. Episode/kaiju rundown time. Here are some highlights. One of the standout episodes from the Go Can't Stop Sucking period is episode 4, with Monster of the Week King Saurus III. What happened to the first two King Sauruses? Well, the answer is complicated and I don't even think they know. I go by the fan explanation that Red and Ella King were the first two and King Joe doesn't count because he's a robot. Anyways, King Saurus III is notable for being the first monster to give Ultraman Jack a hard time, forcing Go to undergo intense training to give himself a fighting chance. It's the episode I think of first in regards to Go's journey as a character, due to the lengths he goes to improve himself. This sort of arduous training where the protagonist drags themselves through the mud to beat the new monster was used extensively in Ultraman Leo. Maybe that's why I like that one so much. Not really a highlight, more just a nerdy detail. Episode 9 is the only time in the entire show where they preview the monster of the episode alongside its title card. Normally they just display the monster name and save showing the monster for later, but Dangar, or Dunger, got special treatment. It's not even a notable episode or monster, it's bog standard even. I suppose the showrunners wanted to test how audiences reacted to the monster getting previewed and backpedaled right after. Shout out to Deton, the monster that sounds exactly how it looks. It's a lumpy recycled Telesdon suit so rotted that they decided to make it its own monster. It is visibly dying even before Jack kills it. Return of Ultraman experiments with more two-parters, seen as early as Disc 1 with the stories featuring Gudon and Twintail. Two monsters with whips for appendages who put aside their heated rivalry to slap Jack into the dirt. The wide shots framed by overpasses in the foreground, I love it. Ultra 7 already cemented that sunset fights were cool as hell, and Returns capitalizes on that with even more dramatic confrontations at dusk. Speaking about the show generally, this is an exceptionally well-shot entry. I noticed that especially on this watch. A common technique I noticed is how it loves framing characters and monsters under or near objects in the foreground. It gives the shot depth and directs the viewer's attention. It's nice how even the average tone-setting human scenes are given this level of artistic flair, and it makes even the less noteworthy episodes at the very least interesting to look at. Anyways, back to the Twintail two-parter. Holy shit, I forgot about this part. When Matt is planning to bomb Tokyo to get rid of the monsters, Ken makes reference to the American bombings from World War II to emphasize how ironic it would be that he has to go through the same thing again. It's not the only reference to World War II, and this one is self-reflective. In a later episode, the monster Mognazun is formed using bioweapons the Japanese military created. I'm not getting into that whole thing, but it's an insane and bold thing to reference. I was surprised the show was willing to acknowledge something that dark and even base a whole episode around the shame Matt member Kishida feels for being in the family that created those weapons. He feels like he needs to redeem himself for his family accidentally creating a monster. Again, this show has a whole theme of failure and redemption. Tangentially related to references in the war, another memorable two-parter starts like the original Godzilla movie, starting with the destruction of a ship that spirals into Ultraman having to battle the power couple Seamons and Sigarath. Yes, Seamons is its actual name. There are some great miniature effects in this one when the monsters flood the city. Ultraman makes use of a new power to rewind footage in order to stop it. The first of many unique techniques to set him apart from 66-Man. Speaking of 66-Man, this two-parter's got Akiji Kobayashi in another role, and it feels weird that he's not playing the captain character. Shout out to this shot in the first part. It's stock footage from Invasion of the Astro Monster, and boy have I seen it get mileage. Pterochilus has always been one of my favorite Ultra Kaiju. It's just appealing to me. There's just something fun about it being a bat turkey bird with web as a breath attack. It's just one of those unique one-off monsters with funky powers whose only other appearances extend to spin-offs and stage shows. The story it's featured in was complex enough to turn it into a two-parter, similar to another inexplicably powerful turkey monster from later in the 70s. I don't want to get too into it. It's great. It's like both Pterochilus and the doomed convict the episode is about are both holding Tokyo hostage. I like the parallel there. The convict in question is played by Shoji Ishibashi, who went on to play the protagonist of Ultraman knockoff Iron King. It's one of my favorite shows I got to talk about for Ultra Gaiden, so check that out. He acts an awful lot like Gentaro. Maybe this is the timeline where he snapped. Beacon is another monster I'm fond of. The episode it's from is about a mysterious late-night broadcast showing a first-person view of Beacon destroying aircraft. It's a premise that preys on the fears of late-night programming, when broadcast standards are less strict and you can get away with showing Xavier Renegade Angel in its intended environment.
Get in the way! I'm committing vehicular manburger helper!
Except here, it's airplane disaster footage the monster is not only responsible for, but wants people to see. I love how it just rams into buildings like a wrecking ball. The episode ending with another dusk battle is a +1. I wasn't able to see episode 26 until I got the Mill Creek Blu-ray release. When I was originally watching this show with the Tokyo Is Suck subs, this one just wouldn't play, so it took until the Mill Creek Blu-ray release for me to see this. It's not a notable episode, it's a typical plot, even if it does contain one of the rare instances of reinforcing Go and Aki Sakata's relationship by showing them on a date. I just have an amusing anecdote about this one. Return Man really hits its stride once it reaches episode 33. The following string of stories are some of the best and most memorable in the show's run. Just some absolute banger stories and monsters. And it all starts with one of the more famous ones, which is about an orphaned boy who's adopted by an alien. They're both treated very poorly. We see it more so with the kid since he's the only one who goes out in public. It's a comment on xenophobia in Japan. The length it goes to show how cruel the bullies and villagers are just based on rumors about this kid really emphasizes it. It ends with an impressive long take where Jack fights the monster Marucci, and that just makes it all the more memorable. One episode made more notable by the passage of time is about an old friend of Hideki Go creating a plant monster hybrid in a lake. This is interesting because the episode's writer, Shinichiro Kobayashi, would go on to write the initial treatment for Godzilla vs. Biollante, where a scientist creates a plant-human monster hybrid, this time with the DNA of his deceased daughter and Godzilla's. The monster in this episode is also made with animal parts, which was an element carried over into Dutalios, a monster who was cut from Godzilla vs. Biollante, which fans cite Toho Kingdom did a mock-up for using the Ultraman Tiga kaiju King Mullrat, so hey, everything's connected. Another thing Godzilla vs. Biollante doesn't have is the random pop song. Not really a highlight, just another anecdote. There's an episode featuring an alien named Varduk, who I remember the original English subs referring to as Alien Balton. Varduk and Balton. I don't know how that happened. This episode gave me my favorite gif from the show, so it's not all that bad. Look at how the face bends on impact. Ouch! I like Robonezu, the robot rat monster. It only appears in the opening action scene of one episode, and the rest of the story has nothing to do with it. It's arguably a more impressive monster than the alien the episode is actually about. Seriously, that's just a wetsuit they slapped some shit on. Robonezu is the real star. Continuing a tradition from the very first show where one of the final episodes is really goofy, one of the big standouts is the alien Yamaterance, who passively spreads a virus that makes everyone comically lazy. It's not even laziness, it just flips an internal switch that makes you do the opposite of what you want to do. It's like an executive dysfunction virus. This isn't the first or last time there would be a wedding-related gag in this franchise. The whole thing is hilarious. It gets funnier when Matt gets infected and they achieve about as much as they normally do even when they are trying. It's time for the spoiler talk, or at least things I would say are cool enough to be worth seeing before letting a YouTube guy like me yap over them. Cementing the show's relationship with its predecessors, Return is the first show to experiment with crossover episodes. Ultra 7 appears at the end of the Bemstar episode, confirming he didn't die at the end of his show, where he gives Jack a new toy to kill monsters with. This is also the first time an Ultra receives a mid-series power-up. This would become a tradition. The more notable crossover happens 3/4 of the way through the show. Aki and Ken Sakata are killed. This is not a fake-out, they aren't revealed to have made a full recovery, they are straight up not coming back. This happens suddenly, and it changes the course of the rest of the show. Overcome with grief, like the aliens of the week intended, Go fights a losing battle against the monster Black King, presumably King Saurus IV by another name, and his master alien Knuckle. Not only did he lose two of the closest people in his life, but he's also due for an execution the following day. But that's okay because holy shit, Ultra 7 and Ultraman are here, as in the original Ultraman, he's back. With their human actors too. Hayata is looking a little pudgy now, but yeah, damn, okay. Even after years of getting used to previous Ultramen showing up to help in later shows, the first time it happens here is still really special to me. This was a Christmas special, by the way. Yeah, gather around the TV, kids. Watch Ultraman get executed. As an aside, this two-parter features some of the most blatant use of stock footage in the series, recycling Jack's entire fight with Bemstar and Sigurath. It's odd to see them pull a Godzilla vs. Gigan like this. As much as it breaks my heart to say it, this is the best Return Man gets. It's all downhill from here. Coincidentally, this is around the time aliens start getting more involved in these stories too. They're present for all of the next 12 episodes. The remaining quarter isn't exactly bad, but the change in status quo caused by the deaths of two of its side characters hurts it. Go no longer had a mentor figure he could confide in or a love interest he could be vulnerable around. I mean, the show tries by literally replacing her with a character named Rumiko, but she doesn't feel like more than anything but a replacement. So the remaining episodes are a lot more, standard. The show feels like it's on autopilot at this point. In fact, in spin-off material like the PS2 Ultraman game, the Return of Ultraman mode ends at the Black King and Knuckle fight. They could have recycled the Zeton model for one more fight, but choosing to end here was like saying, yeah, this is the real finale. It's not a complete loss, I've already talked about a few of these episodes before the spoiler section started. The show is still consistently shot well, it's just that its best moments are already behind it. For one, Alien Baltan is back. Okay, it's his son, and he's way dumber. He doesn't even fight Jack himself. He uses a doofy robot made out of a building. Yeah, Bill Gamo was the original concrete. And once this guy is inevitably defeated, Junior shows up to be like, ha ha ha, I'll be back, and then he never comes back. Baltan Jr. is a stray character who never got a follow-up, unless this is somehow the same one that appeared 8 years later in Ultraman 80. Following the original Ultraman Cosmos movie, it became sort of a rule that Tsuburaya would only let the original creator of Baltan do Baltan episodes, and I'd imagine it's because of nothing throwaway stories like this one, where they obviously didn't have a long-term plan despite Baltan's importance as one of Ultraman's most iconic enemies. He doesn't even do the correct laugh. No, bro. Did you even see Matango? It's more like... In the series finale, Jiro and, Rumiko are kidnapped by Alien Bat, whose plan is the most treacherous yet. He brought back the monster who defeated the first Ultraman, Zeton. Can Jack outperform his predecessor and defeat? Yeah. Zeton looks really doofy here, in a charming way. It's clear they didn't have the same suit, so they quickly threw together this really puffy-looking one, or they recycled something from a stage show. He's awesome, he strokes out over nothing. Like seriously, what's he doing here? It's a weak conclusion, but the bar was already put in the stratosphere after Ultra 7. Very few Ultra shows from this time have completely satisfying endings. If there's one thing that works here, it's how it shows Hideki Go has come full circle on his journey. It's a lot better than how the first show did it, where Ultraman unfusing with Hayata suggesting the latter was having his body hijacked the whole time. Here it's like, no. Go has become Ultraman. There is no line between them. He's overcome his weaknesses and embodies what it means to be Ultraman. He leaves Jiro with the 5 Ultra Oaths. If anything, this mantra is more important than the episode it's from, since it still gets referenced. The rest of the episode is kind of ass. The final 5 minutes are the only thing people, and the franchise itself, remember about it. So yeah, that's Return of Ultraman. I've noticed it's a common sentiment among new viewers that a lot of the show can be kind of dull, people in rooms talking about how to deal with the monster of the week. But on my third overall watch of this series, it hit a certain fascination I have with seeing candid shots of history. It's why I like more low-key episodes like the one from Ultra 7 with the Stargazer. This show is even more honest about the time it was made. It's only natural to like something more on the third watch, but I was surprised with how much I vibed with Return Man, despite its more obvious problems. The monster designs are very hit or miss. It's not the most well-paced show, and because of that I wasn't always locked in. Matt not being the most distinct attack team really doesn't help since half the runtime assumes they're worth spending time with. Yet despite not always being dialed in, I think Returns might be one of my comfort Ultra shows, something I can have on in the background and still have a good time with. The music made up of new and recycled Toru Fuyuki tracks is great. More than a handful of episodes stand above the rest as ones worth recommending. I enjoy Go's journey as a character, the fights are fun as always, and the cinematography throughout is pretty fantastic. Yeah, overall, I like this one. There is a bit of nostalgia at play here too. When I think back to Return of Ultraman, I remember the cramped college dormitory, the cold of the winter held at bay by the space heater, the feeling that I was venturing into a new era of the Ultra series, which I very much was. It's just a pleasant show. Watching it feels like being wrapped in a warm blanket. While Man 66 and 7 introduced the ingredients, Return solidified those ingredients into a rigid formula that the rest of the Showa era would follow. For worse and better. I would levy that against it for setting the stage for Ace to be mediocre, more on that in that video, but I like it too much to accuse it of something like that. Return of Ultraman has a lot of cool stuff in it. Again, I like it. Return gave the franchise a lot of things. The imperfect protagonist with a character arc, how attack teams would be handled as well as the Wandaba motif, the mid-series power-up made for the sake of selling toys. This was where seasonally themed episodes started getting produced like the Winter Horror series, something that became a trend for the remainder of the Showa era, and the universe was expanded for the very first time. The next couple shows took this concept of the Ultras all knowing each other and expanded upon it. I would need to do an extensive check, but next to Zafi and 66 Man, it feels like Jack reappears the most in the next 3 shows. Perhaps a testament to Jiro Dan's availability. And dragging this back down to reality for a second, it still stings knowing that he's the first Ultra protagonist to pass away in real life. This is only going to become a more common occurrence, they're all getting up there in age. Appreciate who we have while they're still here. While Return of Ultraman wasn't solely responsible for the second giant superhero boom, it did get the ball rolling. Tsuburaya also started airing Mirror Man that same year, an Ultra Gaiden that's been long overdue. The little-known Akio Jisoji-led series Silver Mask started airing later the same year, and changed format halfway through to be more like other giant superhero shows. Return Man definitely had an effect. This was also, very obviously, the Ultraman a young Hideaki Anno watched. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Sorry for the Ultraman drought. Here's to hoping I can do more for the franchise's 60th. Have a good one, and remember the 5 Ultra Oaths. Assuming they don't change again. And of course a shout out to the patrons for putting up with the long wait between videos. Thank you very, very much. Here is a shout out to the biggest patron tier. _ It's Missing, Avak Robot, Adelaide, Alistair Gilmore, An Actual Demetrodon, Silas Urtesia, Chronicler Waba, Krazak53, Daniel V. Sykes, Irrelevant 402, Easterman, Eric Guzda, Eric Lutz, Fujoshi Urinal, Godzilla Rich, Gojira King, Greninja Zach, Hinchusatsu Jacob, Iron Knight, It's God Z, Janos Firewalker, Kadorian, Koman, Cool Bell Zero, Queer Kaiju, Little Miss Mimikins, Lobotomy Blues, Mego Muddy, Marpzilla, Matt Frank, Mech, Mulan Nguyen, Neon Yaminair, NerdyGamer556, Old Metal Possum, Red Comet Harry, Ryan Santa Cruz, SG Matthews, Sammy Likes Toku, Serix, Swansea, Yoshikage Scrapper, and Z-Bolt. Have a good rest of your day.